What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We are getting ready to finish up this bumper. So first thing we got to do is weld on the new clevis mounts, and then we can get it all sanded out, ready for some primer and the Raptor Liner. So these are the mounts I bought. They're like an inch thick, and we're gonna weld them on right about there. So this is where the main bracket runs up. You can see where I welded all the way up through there. So I think the best and strongest way to get this mounted on here would have been, before I welded the whole backside in, is drill some holes in the back and weld it from the backside into this clevis mount. But since it's fully welded already, we're not going to be able to do that. I don't want to grind that whole weld out. So what I think I'm going to do is obviously weld, put a few passes on each side coming down, and then on the back side I'm going to put a couple passes here too, just to give it more strength, more weld. So welding this clevis right here with the 1/4 inch plate underneath on the back side, really the strongest point of this bumper. So that's why I wanted to put it here. So let's get this ready. So we're gonna do a little bit of grinding on here on the clevis mount itself. It's already tapered a little bit, but I think I'm gonna taper it just a little bit more to get more weld underneath it. And then we can tack them all on, get them welded in, and get this thing ready for some Raptor Liner. Alright guys, got the first pass laid down, burned in pretty good. So I'm gonna let this cool between each pass, and I'm probably do 3 passes on the outside. And then from the back side, I think what I'll do is weld along these, put a couple more passes along that main mount, just to give it a little more to bite to and a little more strength from the back side. There we go, guys, got all 3 passes on there, nice and sturdy. So let's flip this thing over and put a few more passes down on the back side. It's time to get this thing cleaned up and ready for some primer. So what I'm gonna do is wash it with some degreaser there, water obviously. We're gonna coat it with degreaser, let it sit for a couple minutes, and that helps get all the soot and crap off from welding and all the deep cracks. It's kind of hard to wire brush in there, but that degreaser eats it right off. So the whole underside really needs some degreasing. So we'll get it cleaned up with degreaser, then we'll have to dry the thing really good so it doesn't rust. And then from the backside, it's still got all the weld splatter on, so I want to grind what I can off. So we'll do that and then sand it with 80 grit, get this thing prepped out, cleaned up for some primer. bumper's all cleaned up. It's amazing what just a little bit of degreasing does. It took off all that brown soot stuff from welding and got it all nice and cleaned up. So I'm just gonna take this little flap disc on just a little grinder so I can get in all the nooks and crannies, get all this weld splatter off. If you guys want to check these out, they're on Amazon. They're very cheap, and it's nice to have these. They're like a little 1.5 inch one, so you can get in a lot tighter areas with that. So if you want to check that out, they'll be linked in the description as always. So let's get all this splatter cleaned up, and then we'll get some 80 grit sandpaper and sand the whole bumper with it. All right, we got the bumper hanging up and cleaned up. I wiped it a few times with the Prep Ball wax and grease remover just to make sure this thing is clean. So now let's get some epoxy primer mixed up and let's coat this thing. Alright guys, we got a coat of epoxy primer on this bumper, so now I need to figure out how to hang it upright so that when I spray the part you see, the texture is nice and even. So it's kind of hard because all the mounts are on the bottom, all the holes are on the bottom. So I'm gonna see if I can maybe come through where the holes are for the lights are. Maybe I can come through and somehow get it to stand up. But I'll do a little messing around with it. We need to get it upright so I can make sure the texture lays out even on the front. I'm not too worried about the backside since you're not going to be able to see it. So let's get this thing hanging right. Alright guys, I think I got it. So I'm gonna set this side on the sawhorse right there, and I'm gonna spray the whole top side, and then I'm gonna very carefully lift this bumper off the sawhorse, get it hanging so that I can shoot the whole backside. So I think that'll work pretty good, as long as I don't mess up the coating when I'm trying to lift it up to move it. But if I do mess up the coating a little bit when I'm moving it, you can just hit it over again real quick in that one area, and it usually flows out and matches pretty good. So let's get some Raptor mixed up and spray this thing out. There we go, guys. This Raptor laid out freaking amazing. So what I did differently with this compared to when I sprayed the truck is stayed farther back, and I turned the pressure up to about 70 psi, so about 10 more psi, and standing farther back gives it more of a fine, really fine texture, and it laid out a lot smoother, a lot more consistent. So I wish I would have known that. And I also did kind of a dust coat afterwards. I got a couple comments saying to do a dust coat when you're done spraying, go back over it really light and farther away, and it'll give it a nice even look. And I did that, and it looks amazing. So I wish I would have known that when I sprayed the truck out. Probably could have got that looking a little bit better, but either way, I'm happy with it. And I actually didn't want to pull it off this sawhorse because I didn't want to screw up the paint. So what I did is just got a flashlight, went underneath, and I was able to get everything. So it's completely covered. One bottle did the entire bumper. So I am very, very happy with how this thing turned out. So let's let this thing dry up. We can throw the lights in, throw it on the truck, and see the finished product. All right, guys, it's been a couple days now. This bumper is all nice and dried up. Paint is hardened up. So we need to get the blinkers on. We can get the pods in, throw the bumper on, and get it wired up. So really, we just need to tap into the stock blinker wiring here, and then I got a whole new harness to power these pods. So I'll show you guys all that when we get that far. So let's get the lights in, get the bumper on the truck. Lights are in, so now I'm gonna get into wiring. So I got this whole harness, like I said, and instead of using this cheap little switch, I bought a new switch, and this one actually is really close to fitting in the factory location here. It's just a little bit too narrow, so you can see there's kind of a step in here. You just get a little file it out, and they fit pretty good. So I actually have these in the red truck as well. So I'm gonna file this out, get the switch fitting, then we can run the whole harness, find a spot for a relay, and then really all you got to do is hook up power to the battery and then ground it. So very, very simple to hook up. Well, there it is, guys, on the truck, bolted in. We got everything wired up. Let's go fire up these lights and see how they look. Blinkers and pods are working. These blinkers are extremely bright for how small those things are. Pretty happy with how those look. they kind of blend in being black on a black bumper. So that's it guys, all wrapped up, Raptor lined, everything done. So very, very happy with how it turned out. I think once we get wheels and tires on this thing, it won't look so bulky. I know it doesn't really look too big right now, but at certain angles, especially with those flares sticking out from the wheels and tires, I think a set of 33s is really gonna kind of make this whole truck flow together nicely. It looks a little funny with the little tires, so I want to get those on soon. We have more things to do to the truck though. I'm going to be building a rear bumper as well, so that is next on the list. I got to answer some of the questions and concerns about this bumper from the last video when I built it. So the biggest question was, what did I use for material thickness and what is the weight of the bumper? And then also I got a few comments saying that I didn't put any holes in it for flow into the radiator for cooling. So material wise, what I used was 1/8 inch. I know some of you guys are thinking that's too thin, it's not sturdy enough, but keep in mind, I'm not putting a winch on this thing, so it doesn't need to be extremely heavy duty and beefy. The 1/8 inch definitely is strong enough for what it's going to be used for. It's definitely a lot beefier than a factory bumper, but if you are building a bumper for a winch, or if you want it just beefy, I'd definitely go 3/16 on plate. All my mounts are 1/4 inch, so that is plenty strong. And I never actually weighed the bumper, but I'm going to pull it off for you guys right now. We're going to throw it on the scale and see what it weighs. So as far as the cooling goes, I really don't think there's going to be any issues with it. So when I was doing a little testing on this truck, when I was having cooling issues when it was like 100 degrees outside, I pulled the light bar out of the bumper to increase the airflow into the radiator, and it didn't change anything. So I really don't think not having holes in the bumper is going to affect it a whole lot. I mean, the whole grill is open, so you get a lot of airflow through there. And I really think the majority of the cooling anyway is in the top of the radiator on this side, where the hot water is coming in to the top of the radiator and then filters down. So the majority of the cooling is going to happen at the top of the radiator anyway. So either way, if it does need some more cooling, I can always cut holes in it and then just take some paint or some Pour 15 or something and, you know, go inside where I made the cut and coat that, and it should be just fine. So we're going to obviously test it and keep an eye on the temperature. If there is issues, we're going to fix it. So let's pull this bumper off. I'm going to throw it on the scale for you guys and kind of show you what it weighs. All right, there's the scale. We're zeroed out, so let's throw the bumper on and see what it is. Well guys, it is lighter than I thought it was. We're right at, if you can see that, 55 pounds, 8 ounces. So very, very light. Like I said, if you're doing 3/16, it's gonna be heavier, but I wanted to keep this one lightweight. So like I said in the previous video guys, I have plans built up for this bumper. I made it extremely easy for you guys. Instead of actually giving you like a CAD file or something you have to take to paper and measure out, or take to your steel and measure out, measure all the angles, I made a set of templates that you seriously just cut the template out of the paper, stick it on your metal and trace it. So that is going to cut the time down dramatically versus if I were to give you a CAD file. You'd still have to go out and measure everything, make sure every single angle is perfect, and that's just, it takes so much time to do that. I figured I'd make it very simple, very easy, just give you guys a template. You can slap on a sheet of steel, trace it, cut it, and it'll be done. So if you guys want to check it out, head over to avrcustoms.com. I'll have it linked in the description. If you want to check out this bumper, I actually made 2 separate plans because this truck has an 1.5" body lift on it, and I wanted to make a set of plans for no body lift. So I have plans for 1.5" and no body lift. And if you guys have a different body lift, it's really not that hard to adapt this bumper. You really just take the bottom mounts off the bottom plate and you move that mount depending on how high your body lift is, and then you adjust that bottom plate angle, and then you kind of have to adjust the brackets and everything else. But it's really not that bad. If you guys have, say, a 3" or a 2" body lift, you can take my templates and the majority of the bumper is the same. It's just the mounting brackets, the mounting points, and this lower piece right here where it angles in. You'll have to adjust the angle of this depending on where this mount is. And this is made for obviously 89 to 95 pickups. It will fit on a 4Runner, a 92 to 95 4Runner. They did change the grill on it, where this grill drops down in the center. The 4Runner doesn't drop down, it's straight across. So you may have to adjust some angles on the top of the bumper if you have a 92 to 95 4Runner. But other than that, it should be the same mounts and everything should bolt on the same as the pickup. So go drop a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of the bumper. I think it turned out great. Exactly what I was envisioning when I wanted to build a bumper. So I'm happy we got this thing dialed in. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Smash that thumbs up button, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.